Okay, guys, this one's pretty freaking crazy. We have brand new reports that give us some interesting details about what exactly Sony and Marvel are cooking right now with both the Spider-Man 4 movie and the multiverse in general. Basically, there are indications that Sony and Marvel are negotiating a new deal, which is going to make the future of the Spider-Man character in live action very different than what it has been for the past 5 to 10 years. Let's go! Let's get into it. Let's break it all down. And of course, we're going to speculate on how this is actually going to look. And let's begin by talking about Cryptic HD quality and Alex Perez. These two friggin' guys are having a blast talking on Twitter with GIFs about stuff with Spider-Man. I'm actually not a big fan of scoopers being super ambiguous and using GIFs or images and not actually just being clear with what they know from behind the scenes. But in this instance, I do think it is worth talking about. It made major waves yesterday when both of these accounts started sharing these images of like Venom and Spider-Man, and this all falls in line with other reports from the past couple of weeks that Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland, which is now going to be directed by Destin Daniel Crichton, that movie apparently has completely abandoned its Kingpin plot, its street-level plot with Daredevil and Punisher and stuff like that, and instead it seemingly now is multiversal, and it's going to be about Venom and Venom coming in to the MCU or meeting up with Tom Holland Spider-Man. So when you consider the timing of the Venom 3 trailer coming out, right, and a lot of teases from Alex Perez directly on the CosmicCircus.com about how Venom is going to be in Spider-Man 4 and KNULL might be the villain. It's just interesting and wild that they would begin teasing more Spider-Man and Venom together, seemingly soft confirming that yes, Venom will be showing up in Tom Holland Spider-Man 4. But hold on to that thought, because something else happened yesterday which makes this even crazier. Daniel RPK came out with a scoop that said that Marvel and Sony are currently negotiating a new deal which would allow for Spider-Man to show up in a lot more Marvel movies. Now look, I want to take a second here and just explain this as simply as possible. A lot of you super sweaty nerds like me, you already know kind of what we're talking about, but maybe some other people are coming into this video and they're like, what is happening here? What are you talking about? So Spider-Man is obviously super popular character, maybe the most popular comic book character of all time. Well, in the 90s, Marvel Entertainment sold Sony the license for live action Spider-Man. Okay, so that's why all the Sony movies are Spider-Man. They control that license. So Marvel Studios themselves, even though they can do whatever they want with Spider-Man in the comics and in video games and stuff like that, when it comes to live action and when it comes to the movies, Marvel has to go to Sony. They have to work with Sony. So every single Tom Holland Spider-Man movie that's like its own movie, that is produced by Sony. They're actually Sony movies. And over the past couple of years, we've seen Sony and Marvel renegotiate this deal several times. I mean, just in general, getting Spider-Man in the MCU was a massive deal. And the way that deal worked was Kevin Feige would help Amy Pascal and Sony produce the solo Spider-Man movies, and that character would be the same one that is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which obviously adds a bunch of interest and oomph and hype to the individual Sony film. Sony would get access to certain MCU characters that would be like the villains and, you know, Nick Fury, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange. And then in turn, Sony would go on to make their own Spider-Man stuff. This is the Morbius, Madam Web, all the disastrous stuff that they have been building on their own. And then Marvel Studios was able to use Tom Holland Spider-Man in the Avengers movies, in Civil War, in other movies. But I don't know if you noticed, it's been quite some time since we've seen Tom Holland Spider-Man. The last we saw him was in No Way Home, and Spider-Man has not popped up in any movie or any show since then, seemingly because this deal between Sony and Marvel was being renegotiated and things were just weird. Now, there's one more element to this whole thing that I want to talk about before we kind of pull it all together and get into the speculation, okay? You've got to remember that over the last year at least, we've been hearing a lot of reports that Marvel and Sony were negotiating and kind of having major disagreements about what to do with Spider-Man 4. According to insiders, Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige wanted more of a street-level story story with Tom Holland Spider-Man. They wanted to involve Daredevil. They wanted to involve Kingpin. But Sony had apparently always wanted Spider-Man 4 to be more multiversal and to bring in elements like maybe Venom, maybe Tobey Maguire, maybe Andrew Garfield. Like, Sony wanted to go big, and this was a major debate that we were hearing from behind the scenes. Well, it appears, according to the teases from Alex Perez and Cryptic HD, that Sony kind of won that battle. I mean, partially it looks like they won that battle because Marvel also pivoted into Doctor Doom in the multiverse, and they basically can't do Spider-Man 4 before like the last incursion and going into basically Battle World. But I also suspect that Sony just got their wish, basically wanting to have Venom in that movie. I mean, you have to think about it like this, guys. Sony wants Venom and Spider-Man fighting together. That's going to make whatever they do with Venom next, or just in general, that movie really, really hyped and really big, right? It also helps hype up the Venom 3 movie. Sony's Venom 3 movie's coming out in October, and I would assume because they're sort of now connecting that directly to Spider-Man 4, that's a huge draw to go see that movie. So that leak and rumor will be out there. Fans will be interested in how this movie for Sony sets up Venom in Spider-Man 4. So that's all really good for Sony. Well, if Sony got what they wanted, we have to assume Marvel Studios is getting something that they want as well. And I think what Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios clearly want for Tom Holland Spider-Man is to be able to use him in more stuff. I mean, we heard in Joanna Robinson's book, The Reign of Marvel Studios, that following the Infinity Saga, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios desperately wanted Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Tom Holland Spider-Man to be the key faces of the franchise. They were going to replace the trinity of Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. And if you remember all the way back to 2019, when Kevin Feige first revealed the slate for Phase 4 and talked about all the Phase 4 projects, it was 2 weeks before that Sony yanked the rug out from under the Sony Marvel deal, and that next movie was thrown into chaos. And we have heard reports since then that in 2019, Kevin Feige had more to show us. He was going to do more with Spider-Man, perhaps was going to announce Captain Marvel and that movie being connected to Tom Holland Spider-Man, but he had to hold back because the deal with Sony basically fell apart for the time being. And then there was that whole thing where Tom Holland drunkenly calls Bob Iger and Tom Rothman, and everybody gets back together and they renegotiate, and then they do No Way Home, which was an epic success, and both studios were really happy with that. But again, the negotiations past that point have been like vague. We've heard all of this conflict, and there just hasn't been a Spider-Man 4, man. What the hell? Okay, so that's what's happening. That's what's being reported. But how will this actually show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like, if this is accurate, we then kind of know Venom's going to be in Spider-Man 4, maybe some KNULL business there as well, but then Marvel Studios gets to put Tom Holland Spider-Man into way more movies. So what is Kevin Feige going to do with that? And to me, there are basically three options. Number one, they start putting Spider-Man into things immediately. So ironically, I'm actually working on a big video that's going to preview all the coming projects for Marvel Studios over the next couple of years and how each and every one of them will tie into Doctor Doom. It's epic. It's a big, big video. But the point is, they need to do that, right? Marvel Studios needs to start setting up the connective tissue. We need to get back to that Infinity Saga feeling when we were leading towards Infinity War, where like all of the movies felt like a big story and all the characters were going through all of those events together, right? There are major rumors that big changes happen in Captain America Brave New World, maybe new endings with like Bruce Banner, the Hulk being involved, reassembling the Avengers, possibility of a crazy post-credit scene. Like, guys, there were even reports that Robert Downey Jr. was on the set of Brave New World last July, although at the time a lot of people said, oh, he was just there to visit and he was racing all these supercars. But now that we know the deal with Doctor Doom had already been in place, it's a little bit more interesting. What the hell was Robert Downey Jr. doing on the set of Brave New World? I say all of that to say it would be epic as hell if they brought in Tom Holland Spider-Man into Brave New World. And look, it seems from our perspective now that that's just a long shot. That's probably not going to happen. But maybe that's what this deal is for. Maybe that's what Kevin Feige wants to do. Then maybe you even have Tom Holland Spider-Man pop up in the Thunderbolts movie. That's possible as well. And then if you think about it, even in the Fantastic Four movie, you could use Tom Holland Spider-Man, because although that movie is rumored to take place in a separate universe, the rumors indicate that universe might be destroyed and that group might end up on 616. And if they pop up through a portal or a ship or something in New York City, what if Tom Holland Spider-Man is there to greet them? And any one of those scenarios and scenes could tie into Doomsday, right? And Tom Holland Spider-Man is supposed to be a big focus of the Doomsday film. So again, they could begin to set that up with cameo appearances immediately with Tom Holland Spider-Man. The next possibility for this is even crazier, and I personally hope this is the way they go. This would see Tom Holland Spider-Man cameo in the Battle World movies. As it stands right now, it seems like there will be 3 movies between Doomsday and Secret Wars. The first of which being Spider-Man 4, which is supposed to have Venom and Tom Holland and maybe KNULL. And then we don't really know what the other 2 movies are. They could be Doctor Strange 3, they could be Thor 5, they could be the Scarlet Witch movie or some other crazy film, but it does seem like they would be Battle World movies. TLDR on that is we believe at the end of the Doomsday film, the multiverse will be irrevocably altered. Either all of the universes are destroyed via incursions, and then there's just Battle World, or eternity is destroyed and the space between universes is destroyed, making the multiverse into a singular verse that Doctor Doom will rule over. Either way, the Battle World setting is awesome, and it's a great way to tell epic stories. And maybe what Marvel Studios wants to do is establish a through line of characters that are dealing with things on Battle World that then lead to Secret Wars. Maybe that's the Infinity Saga feeling, right? Like going from Age of Ultron into Civil War. Maybe that's the connective tissue, and Tom Holland Spider-Man will be an important part of building up that Battle World saga leading into Secret Wars. I mean, that would honestly be epic as hell, dude. I would love that shit. But there is technically a third option, and maybe an option that makes the most sense, and this is all about the soft rebooted MCU. Again, most of you know what I'm talking about here, but for those that are uninitiated or not paying close attention, the rumors are saying that after Secret Wars, you will see a soft reboot of the MCU, which is essentially just to take all of the characters and have them in one universe again. So the Fantastic Four, X-Men, Spider-Man, Avengers, all of the Marvel characters in a singular universe. That's the soft rebooted MCU. And maybe Kevin Feige is just looking at that soft reboot and he's like, you know, I could really use more Spider-Man. So Sony, I'll let you do this Venom thing in Spider-Man 4. We can do this KNULL thing, but I'm going to need access to way more Tom Holland Spider-Man for my soft rebooted MCU. Maybe that's what the plan is. And it's not that I would be mad about that. It's just like we will have to wait for that. Although from Marvel's perspective, that would just be one more reason to check out the new MCU. I really think that new MCU is going to be epic, dude. They're going to focus on mutants. It's going to be really, really fun. So having Spider-Man be a big part of that is a huge W. So I would like that. I just personally think Tom Holland is really important to building up this story in the current MCU with the multiverse saga, with RDJ Doctor Doom, and with Secret Wars. So there you have it, guys. An epic amount of updates with regards to Venom and Sony. Light at the end of the tunnel. Hope for us Marvel fans that Sony will no longer Sony, that Spider-Man is going to show up in way more MCU stuff. And we also speculated on how that could happen. 3 different options, all of them really, really freaking cool. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video.